Before we get started tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on another episode of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, I want to talk to you all about a couple of our sponsors. The Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. Congratulations on them on their regular season win for them, on their first win of the season, and the season opener against the Desert Scorpions, a 12-8 in defensive battle. The world of semi-pro sports, I get that out, is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in the hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film or to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing in the same shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Wherever you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, and get semi-pro player sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can find them on social media at Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California _Warriors, and on Facebook, Southern California Warriors. Like I said, congratulations to them on the 12-8 win against the Desert Scorpions. Background International. Background Check International. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit founded and has managed Background Check International since 1994. And he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not used for any other crimes such as identity theft or any illegal activity. You can find it on social media at the website at bcint.com, on Facebook at Background Check International, BCI. Now on to the show. So, Dennis Schroder going to the Celtics, like we called last week. Is this a good move for him? Or was it kind of stupid that he turned out a huge contract extension earlier in this past season? We'll discuss all the angles on that. Plus, Giannis' biography has come out, and we're going to talk about some certain experts in that biography, mainly about Jason Kidd and his time there. That and much more here on Fast Break, here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for That's All Sports, and you're welcome to join us. And join us as you shall tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in with us. If you hang tight at the end of the show, we have some news regarding about the show, so please stay tuned for that. But D-Lock, how are you doing tonight, sir? I'll get those words right.
I'm doing good, man. It's all good. I know it's been an exciting past couple 24 hours, a couple days for you and I. So I'm doing pretty good. The basketball news is starting to slow down a little bit, but obviously the biggest news with Dennis Schroder was, I guess that's the way to cap off the NBA free agency so far.
Yeah. We talked about this last week. We'll just go ahead and hop on this. We talked about this last week, D-Lock, that, you know, where could he go? You know, you kind of look around the league. Lakers made their move for Russell Westbrook. Seemed like every team, got their point guard set in stone, in a sense. And, before we were on this corner, I thought, Minnesota would probably be in a decent place for Schroder, for the minimal. But, what's happened has happened. But I mentioned last week, the Celtics would be a good landing spot for him. They needed a point guard after they traded Kemba. I'm not saying you can't run Marcus Smart at the point like that, but he's not like a floor general. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He'll try and get his at some point, which is not good for the pecking order for that team, which we discussed many times before. But Mr. Schroder signed a 1-year deal for about close to $6 million. What do you think about him signing there? I mean, good fit basketball wise, but if you were his agent, what's the next progress in his career in your eyes? What would you do? It's like after he turned that $84 million and then he didn't get the money that he expected. What's the next goal for Dennis here?
Well, first I would look back at how the Lakers experiment went, right?
Yeah.
That just didn't go the way that we expected. Hell, I thought that was a big pickup for the Lakers. Now what we know from Dennis Schroder is he's a great player off the bench. He gets in those minutes. He has different rotation, different lineups that he can run with and do his damage. Clearly that didn't work in LA. It started out with him saying that he was promised to start X, Y, and Z, and then that's what we seen with the Lakers. It just seemed like he didn't fit that mold. Now, I don't think that he didn't fit the Lakers mold. I just felt like he didn't fit the mold that he tried to carve out as being a starter. I think he's a better player coming off the bench. Kind of like the Derrick Rose that we know now. Not the Derrick Rose, the MVP Derrick Rose, but the Derrick Rose we see post the surgeries is in these different stops. The Timberwolves, the Pistons, the Knicks. He's played very well coming off the bench. Same thing with Jordan Clarkson. I feel like he's a better person off the bench. So maybe we can see that kind of fold into what happens in Boston with Marcus Smart starting. Now, obviously, that's a pride thing, in a sense where you have to kind of humble yourself and understand that this is what fits you better. With Kemba gone, you see what Kemba kind of had in Boston. I think Dennis Schroder plays a better role in Boston. I told you before, my problem with Boston is who's going to be the guy on a consistent basis. And I think with Boston signing him, I don't think they expect Dennis Schroder to be that guy, or they don't want him to. Now, I think he's going to learn from coming out saying he was promised to be the starter in LA, because I don't think he'll come out and say anything similar to him signing with Boston. But my expectation, I think, agent-wise, they need to reevaluate and say, well, hey, this is what we looked like before the Lakers signing, before the Lakers experience. Now, let's not forget, they offered him $84 million and he turned it down. So that's the first thing. I actually sent you that message that I seen. It says the dealer says you have 21 blackjack, and he says hit me again. So he's playing his luck, and he craps out. So to me, I'm thinking that they learned from the big mistake that they made. I don't know if he makes that similar money back, but I do feel like if he plays much better this year coming up, that he can earn more money than the 1 year, $6 million deal he got, or $6 to $8 million deal he got. And I think he's going to play. I can't say he's going to play better, because I feel like he's going to play a better role with Boston than he did with the Lakers. Like I said earlier, he carved out the role to be the starter, to be on the court with LeBron, to try to be a facilitator, to be that point guard. Well, we know the situation with the Lakers. That wasn't like what I'm sure they initially signed him for. So I don't see Boston signing him to be a starter to big time contribute like that starting out. I feel like he's going to play a better role coming off the bench behind Marcus Smart with Jaylen Brown is off the court. He can fit in there with the Jason Tatum, get things kind of cooking the way they want. So they signed Enes Kanter too, right?
Yeah, they brought him back. Yeah.
Yeah, so even though, Kanter is not a big signing, I think he can play a role as well. And we know that Schroder kind of plays pretty good with the alley-oop and assist man to the center. That's what they wanted with Trez and him in L.A. So I think this time around, he's going to learn from that mistake or that decision to try to be that guy. And I think we see a better Schroder or a role that fits Schroder. Let me say that. And I think it's going to pay off dividends for the agent. Now, clearly, like I said, they gave away the $84 million. I don't know if they are going to get that back, but I think they can make more, some more money this upcoming or after this season. If he shows him being in that role of coming off the bench of playing big.
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you think his agent advised him to take the $84 million and then Dennis said no? Or vice versa? Dennis wanted to take it, but his agent probably, heard some stuff in the background that he may get paid more. What do you think about that angle? Do you think the agent told him to take it and Dennis kind of wanted to better himself? He thought he was going to get more? Or, because something had to get lost here. Because I pulled up Spencer Dinwiddie's contract, and he was a free agent also this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he would got a little bit more, but he got a 3-year, $54 million deal. Now granted, yes, he come off an ACL injury, but still, I thought, he at least got a little bit more than that.
For me, I think that Schroeder hasn't fired his agent yet, right?
Not that I know of. Not to this point, no, I don't think so.
So I think that they probably had some kind of agreement of turning down that deal. Now, it does kind of sound absurd, but I think they probably were on the same page. And then also when you did make that's a decision that you make that, hey, all right, we're going to ride together on this. So, whatever happens, if it does turn out bad, we're not going to point the finger at each other type of thing. So understanding that, I think they, rode that ship together. I feel like, that decision was made and they both agreed upon it. Now, I think at some point, they were saying the pros and cons, but clearly on the agent side, he's probably not necessarily looking out in the best interest for Schroeder. He's probably looking out for, more money for himself as well. So, now it'd be a different thing if we're talking about the Lakers going to the NBA Finals, and playing a big role. But they got put out the first round, and his play had a lot to do with that. So, for me, they had to sit there and understand that this is what we're turning down and we're trying to get more somewhere else. It just didn't work out in their favor. I mean, you're going to have to take a risk at some point, but that general wealth opportunity, or higher general wealth anyway, was there. Now, who's to say that it was just money in LA? It could have been other things that could have played a part. But we know, the pressure of playing with LeBron, a lot of people can't necessarily handle that. So maybe that played a part. Maybe LeBron and being in the Lakers uniform was even bigger noise that could have been just a little too much for Schroeder. So for me, I think him and the agent, were together on that decision. Was it a smart decision? Pretty sure it wasn't, especially now looking at hindsight 2020. Now, obviously, we say it's not a smart decision then, but he breaks the bank with somebody else. Now it looks like a good decision. So, but either way, you had to decide, something. I'm pretty sure his agent was in his ear saying, "Hey, we can get more somewhere else." So you could take that deal, but you could be shortchanging yourself, and boom, it actually turned out for the worst. So, but hopefully that's a lesson learned between the both of them, because now you do go to Boston, which in a sense I really felt like Boston just picked him up just because they knew they actually won that deal.
Yeah.
If you ask me. He wanted a hell of a lot more, and we got him on a 1-year deal. So the guy that was asking for so much. So for me, let's see how long these two go together. I'm not sure if the agent is fired, and if not, we see how long these two last.
Yeah, we'll see how they last. I think, for a player fit, I think he's going to fit in nicely. And then we'll see how the season goes. Like Terry, said in the chat, Schroder could revive his career with the Celtics. He just had a down year, It ain't like he been on a slump for the past couple of years. He had the COVID issue, came after that, really kind of went the same. And then at that point in the Lakers season, he had, the injuries with LeBron, AD, and then, you had something with a coaching issue there too with Vogel. After those two guys are out, the rotations are messed up. But, the fit with Boston, I like it. And, like I said, who to say? He could have a bounce back year. And, Brad Stevens could have offered him a nice big deal in that 2022 offseason. I'm looking right now for projected. Now this is projected, but projected practical cap space for teams next offseason. Just going down the list. The Knicks next offseason are projected to have $63 million in cap space. Just projected. That's not like including R.J. Barrett's, extension, like anything like that. Or what they do with Mitchell Robinson and all that stuff. Then you go to Memphis. They projected at $62 million, but they already got John Morant. So, I doubt that, ain't going to happen. New Orleans, they drafted Kyra Lewis. I think, Kyra Lewis should be the future there. Detroit, they got Kenley Hayes, Kay Cunningham. I don't see Schroder, if he decides to go elsewhere trying to look for his money, to go there. Your team, Orlando, they have $54 million, but they already got a nice collection of guards already. And then you get to the Spurs, they have $48 million. Now, it kind of depends if they love Dejounte Murray or not to kind of stay with them. I think they do, but we'll see. Then you got Charlotte. There we got LaMelo Ball, so that's a no. Cleveland, $37 million. That's a weird team to kind of figure out.
Yeah.
They trade.
I don't know what the hell they're doing.
They traded for Rubio during the draft night. You still kept Colin Sexton. You got Darius Garland. I don't know which way they're trying to go with that team. In a sense.
Nobody knows.
They drafted Evan Mobley, which I still think is an odd fit, and they re-signed Jared Allen to that big deal to play along with Evan Mobley. So I just don't know where they're going with that squad.
Up in the air right now. They're doing the stuff that the Magic do.
But hey, at least I say for the Magic, they got one of my favorite young players on that team, Jalen Suggs. So, that got that going for them.
He looked pretty good, too, before you got hurt.
Oh, yeah. He's looking really good. And really good. And it's why we kind of go Summer League for a second. Luka Garza had, last night, during Summer League, he had a double-double for the Pistons. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, that dude's 7 foot, 6'11", 7 foot, could play inside, outside. I said, why the hell they pay Kelly Olynyk damn near $40 million to do it? They drafted this guy right here to do the same damn thing.
Yeah.
I was like,
Seems like some of these teams are just spending money just to spend money.
yeah.
At that aspect.
Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, yeah, some of these teams got to spend money to get to a certain level for the cap space. But sometimes logic got to kick in. It's like, okay, if I drafted this guy first, who kind of do the same thing, guy that I signed for $40 million, my logic say, okay, I'm trying to get more mileage out of this guy, the cheaper option here for more cap space down the road to do other things. Because you put it like this way, D-Lock. Say Killian Hayes, Kate Cunningham kind of blossom as players that we project them to be. And then if those two guys blossom to, players that, potential great players that we expect them to be, you can use that cap space to kind of bring somebody else along and say, oh, okay, they got something going on out there. Up there in Detroit. I'll go join them for a year or two. It's just hustling backwards that some of these teams do that. Like you mentioned about your team, the Magic, they kind of repeat the cycle again and again and again.
And that doesn't do anything either. That's the thing. I mean, you're repeating this cycle. You have to make a change. A lot of the times, do something different. At some point, we're tired of seeing. I know me, because one of my teams is one of the teams that's not at the top. You're tired of seeing the same team literally being at the top every year. Like, it's okay if, prime example, you're an Alabama fan. You're fine with everything. You keep winning. You wouldn't have a problem with it. But when you're at the bottom tier, at some point where you're continuously doing the same thing that's not working, as the Magic have done for a long time, Cleveland, Detroit, these guys, these teams, they have to do something that's going to be different, that's going to put them on the same level, at least more competitive. But also with that, we talked about this before, is you can't make a change and say, well, hell, okay, it's been 2 weeks or 2 years. We're not high in the playoffs right now, so we're going to just start from scratch again. You can't keep doing that. Like, that's not how it works. So, I don't like Cleveland, I kind of see that Detroit is trying to make that move. But let's see what they have with Sadiq Bey and Cade Cunningham, and the center. Can't think of his name right now. That played pretty good last year.
Isaiah Stewart.
Young pieces. Go ahead.
Was it Isaiah Stewart? Yeah.
Isaiah Stewart, yeah. So you got you some pieces there. Let's see what you can do with that, and then kind of move forward and kind of progress. Because even though, it seemed like the league was a hell of a lot more interesting to a lot of people because the Knicks were playing, a lot better this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's not forget the Detroit Pistons were pretty good for a while too now. So we're talking about Isaiah Stewart, but we're forgetting about Isaiah Thomas from the Detroit Pistons. So these teams, if they can get up to that level, more competitive, I think we have a much more interesting NBA season, especially with the East. Dude, it looks like the East is just dragging their feet throughout the season. And it just seemed like the West is literally taking over. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. There's still, things happening right now during free agency. A bunch of trades is still happening. Right now, even to this point right now, things are still going off and teams are trying to get better.
Well, I know last week we talked about free agents and stuff like that, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this one team. But what did you thought about the Miami Heat's moves? Because think about it. And I kind of want to touch this other team too, Toronto, here in a little bit. Okay, you picked up Gordon Crowder's contract. You traded that for Kyle Lowry. Now those guys both around the same age, about 35 or so. Am I right? If our numbers are right.
Yeah, they're around the same age, right?
Okay. So you did do that deal, and you sent what's his name for Kentucky up in that trade. to Toronto. Then you get Duncan Robinson a $90 million deal. In which, okay, hey, cool that he got his money. But, you know, there's like rumors of them possibly getting James Harden. And you didn't want to give up Tyler Hero in that deal. But, you know, what does the future hold for Tyler Hero in Miami if you get Duncan Robinson $90 million? You basically chose who's going to be your main 3-point shooter, and you went with Duncan. And then we talked about this past. I'm not saying they have a love-hate relationship with Kendrick Nunn, but you know, I think he should have been there. Yeah, he should have been the point guard of the future, but they never really went all the way with him. He was great, fine, undrafted, played well his rookie year, but they really never went all the way with him. Now he's with the Lakers, but I think it's kind of like an underrated move. So what do you think about the Heat, you know, making the moves they did to go along with some of the pieces they have?
The Kyle Lowry thing had me in question for a minute because I'm still trying to figure out, can we? He's been pretty solid, but it depends on what they're asking him. Now, obviously, I think it's going to be easier for him to transition over there because Jimmy Butler's the leader there. And last time Kyle Lowry was under a team where he wasn't technically he was the leader, but it wasn't for him performance-wise to do everything. That's kind of what Jimmy Butler role is, just as if Kyle Lowry role. I'm sorry, not Kyle Lowry. Kawhi Leonard role was when he was in Toronto. I feel like he's going to fit there perfectly. At first, I kind of was questioning it, but it can work. It's just the fact that, he's a defensive guy, and that's what Miami is going to be known for. They're going to have that defense. The only thing that I really didn't like too much was them paying Duncan Robinson all that damn money. That just was a shocker to me, especially for a guy that's more so of a catch and shoot. I haven't really seen him too much create his own shots like that. Hopefully he develops it just a little bit, but he kind of reminds me of a Kyle Korver type player. So that was something that was big that I noticed. Also, I did like the PJ Tucker move. Again, another player that played good in the playoffs that they needed. When they had Jay Crowder in Miami, he played great against Giannis. So now they want somebody that's kind of as physical, even more physical, in the PJ Tucker to come in and play a role that is big. Because at the end of the day, you see how PJ Tucker looked against Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
He kind of was all in his face. I think him and KD are buddies. So they went to school together too, right?
You're talking about in Texas?
Yeah, I believe they did.
Oh, damn. I got to look.
They were close.
Let me look this up.
I'm almost sure they were probably pretty close. Being the fact that I think KD stayed 1 year and bounced. So, but they, basically have kind of connection. I'm pretty sure they work out together. So he is a good person to match up with KD. So, for me, that was a very, very good move. And that's what I really liked about the whole thing was the fact they went and got a PJ Tucker, because now you have somebody who can play that defense, and they really got physical. That's what they did. That's what Miami did. And I really liked that.
And you sent me something, D-Lock. Taryn is mentioned in the chat. Kind of some breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. The Los Angeles Clippers are trading Patrick Beverley, Rajon Rondo, and Daniel Aturu to the Memphis Grizzlies for Eric Bledsoe. According to ESPN from Woj. I think we kind of hinted that Bledsoe wasn't going to stay there in Memphis. I think they got like a nice young youth movement going on. But we're speaking on the Clipper side of things. Bledsoe's been kind of like a downward swing for the past couple years. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean he has. I mean I think defending wise he's been pretty solid, but on the offensive side, he's been kind of dropping. He had to be the guy that was the most sick out of seeing the NBA Finals because he played with Phoenix and played for Milwaukee.
Yeah, he got that big contract for Phoenix and then got traded to Milwaukee. But Milwaukee really was patient with him to be that, I'm not saying that second guy, but at least that core guy to go along with Giannis, but it just never really materialized. And then, they traded him for Drew Holiday, and then that's all she wrote. But I think, looking for the Clippers side of things, they got to be banking big that he can come in where, excuse me, had great success early in his career to kind of have a bounce back mentality. Because you're getting rid of Pat Beverly, who was a great piece for y'all for the past couple years. Rondo, who had a very solid year under the Clippers. So you banking real hard for him to come in with the Kawhi Leonard being out, having a relationship year, being out, and then come back fully healthy for the 2022 year with the squad. Because if Bledsoe ain't up to snuff, then you're going to have a lot of bloated salary on that team.
Yes. The shocker to me is they moving Patrick Beverly.
Well, as we watch in the playoffs, in certain matchups, he didn't get a lot of time. And I don't know, they looked at it like, okay, can we move him? Can we move him to get something else that can do a little bit more? I think that's what their mindset is. Because we know where he brings defensively and stuff like that in leadership. But offensively, he ain't giving you that much. You know what I'm saying? And then, going to a Memphis that loves that attitude and stuff like that. I think, personality-wise, that's a great fit for him. And then for Rondo, we'll see if Rondo stays there, but I think, I think the Clippers kind of look for something like, if we had a little bit more point guard, I think maybe we could have beat Phoenix. Maybe, just maybe. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, right now, it just seemed like, when you talk about Phoenix, it's like they were primed and ready this year, coming off of last year. The Clippers, they kind of fell apart a little bit when Kawhi went out. Now, Paul George did take over and kind of play how we know Paul George can play, but we didn't see too much from Beverly. What the hell happened to Rondo when he got there? Then again, you do remember when Rondo was a free agent, he never wanted to go to LA or the other LA team. I'm pretty sure they tried to get him as a free agent, and he turned them down. So maybe that played a part. We know how scrappy he can go, he can be. So his interest wasn't there. So going to get a Bledsoe could make a big move for them. And then for Memphis, it just Ja Morant is the guy.
Yep.
So he's gonna play a big role now. That team is very young, and they have a lot of guards over there. So to be honest, I'm not sure how long Beverly stays there.
I think he stays.
Yeah?
I think
Between him and Rondo, somebody's not going to be there too long.
I think Rondo ain't gonna be there. I think Pat Bev. I just think he fits that city. I think he fits that. Tennessee, Memphis, the South, all that stuff. But he fits that city. It kind of screams like Tony Allen in a sense. Tony Allen wasn't the world's greatest shooter, but he can lock you up defensively and stuff like that. And this is what that kind of reminds you of. Call back to those mid 2000s. The run with Zach Randolph, Allen, Rudy Gay, Marc Gasol, Mike Conley, and stuff like that. So, personality wise, I know Pat knows. I think he knows what his role is. I think he knows, when he comes into Memphis, that Ja Morant, the guy, Jaren Jackson, Dylan Brooks. I'm probably pretty sure he knows that. But if he come in and be that solid voice as a veteran for those young guys, like you mentioned, like how young that roster is, that can carry a long way, for the future of this team.
Yeah. I think right now, that trade was just announced. It was a big trade, but it's clear to see what the Clippers are trying to do. And they're trying to be all in right now. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see, like I said, what happens with Grayson Allen got traded too, right?
Who?
I'm pretty sure he did. Grayson Allen.
Yeah, he got traded to Milwaukee. Yes.
Yeah. So Memphis is got to be kind of interesting to see how this plays out, because they kind of redid that roster in a sense around John Morant a little bit, and the few pieces that they have. So Justin Winslow also went to LA, correct?
Yeah, and for like a 2-year deal, and I think you're talking about a guy who's been state bitten with injuries. I think if he can bounce back there, especially with Kawhi being out and get his legs under him and stuff like that, I think he'd be a solid piece for that team. And I think for this trade also, D-Lock, I think get rid of Beverly and Rondo. You freeing up more time for Kennard, who kind of really showed his value, the contract they gave him towards the playoffs and stuff like that. And then, also freeing up more time for Terrence Mann, who really arrived, especially in that Utah series, scoring, about 30-plus points in that win against Utah. I forgot which game it was. But I think you're freeing up more time for those two young guys. You got Bledsoe in the fold as well. Like I said, you brought in Justice Winslow. I don't know how much this kid's going to have, how much time he's going to have this year. But I thought BJ Boston, I thought he was still where you got him in the second round with the trade. I mean, there's a guy, D-Lock, I had pretty high hopes of, coming out of high school, going to Kentucky. But some reason or other, it wasn't clicking like the previous high-profile guys going to Kentucky. But hopefully he'll get the tutelage in LA and kind of boss into that player that a lot of folks envision him to be. But for the Clippers, they're gambling on some young potential, and hopefully it'll play out for them in the end.
Oh yeah, they're gonna lead on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But
But we know that Kawhi Leonard is not a big-time leader. So, gonna see how that works out.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out, for both teams. And I think, if Bledsoe, like I said, if he can come in, find himself again, I think the Clippers, have a borderline all-star if he can bounce back out of his woes. And then for Memphis, Pat Bev, perfect match for that city, that team. And Rondo, if he does stick around, nice veteran leader have around to kind of maybe teach John Morant a few things. But we'll see. But D-Lock, I think one of the things I want to talk about on the show is about Giannis's biography that came out about a few days ago. And one of the things that was brought up in that biography, an expert in that book, one of the big takeaways, was one Jason Kidd. Now, as y'all all know, Jason Kidd got hired to be the new coach of the Dallas Mavericks this past offseason. To also go along with, Luka signing his major extension to stay in Dallas, even though of all the front office issues going on there. But, all the players, rookies signed a big contract extension the first time around. So, anyways, having said that, but when I share this with you, it's like, Jason Kidd, has some tough love for those Milwaukee Bucks at that time. Now, for those that don't know what we're talking about, I'll read a little part of it, here. And let me see if I get the right one.
There was a lot of stuff on that biography, that bibliography, that it kind of shed a light on what kind of coach Jason Kidd was there. Now, I don't think he's the same coach. I would hope not, but he had to get it from somewhere.
Yep. But I'll read this little part here, and then we get, towards a little more of the other stuff here in a sec. But here's one part of it, ladies and gentlemen. But the Bucks were struggling, dropping the game to Charlotte on December 23rd, right before Christmas. Players returned to the locker room dejected, silent, and everyone was ready for the next 2 days off, which would be around Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Zaza, Kidd said, turning to Pachulia, but addressing the group. Do you think this was a winnable game? And Zaza said, it was a winnable game. And do you think we deserve the next 2 days off? Pachulia couldn't believe Kidd had put him in that situation, threatening to ruin Christmas, not only for himself, for everybody else. Pachulia tried to strike a diplomatic tone and said, you know what, Coach? I understand the frustration. We're all frustrated, but this was a game that we were supposed to win. We didn't give enough effort, but at the same time, this is a holiday. Christmas is important to many families. It's not about us, it's about our families. Guys have made plans. Kidd turned to Jared Dudley. What do you think? Should we take the next 2 days off? Dudley, too, gave a diplomatic answer. But Mr. Kidd wasn't satisfied, D-Lock. He said, see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Christmas Eve. And the players said, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean? We're going to have practice tomorrow, Kidd said. Well, some of the players saying, we booked flights to different places. Kidd said, I don't care. You guys get paid to do a job, so you're doing your job tomorrow. Things change. That's cold-blooded. Anyways, so after that little part there, D-Lock, what do you think about Kidd's method right there? Did he go about it the wrong way? Was he kind of harsh on it? Or was he right in the sense like, well, y'all professionals, things change. What were your thoughts, when we read through that?
Well, for me, I feel like that's a situation where you're testing to see. I don't like how he singled out each, Zaza and Jared Dudley, because now you're in the sense where do you side with the coach, do you side with the player?
Mm-hmm.
That's a decision that he's trying to make you decide. Now, granted, we're all adults in this situation, so regardless of whose side you're on, I think you should make your own decision. Based off how they play, whatever. Now, I think one thing that really hurt everything is the fact that Zaza said anything regarding we didn't give that full effort. That is probably what kind of ticked off a coach. Now, you coach. I'm getting into coaching. At some point, we're going to have to be able to coach, our athletes to be the best athletes they can. We can be their friends. We can be mentors. Now we need to actually, give them that tough love in a sense. I don't know if I can say this is in the line of tough love. And it's like, to me, like I feel like that was more so of I'm the boss. I'm the one that makes the decisions. Now we also not only trying to be in coaches, we also work jobs where we're not the bosses. Sometimes we have to do, what our boss tells us. And to me, that's one of those situations where, it's we know you get paid for this, but I feel like this kid may have went a little too far because this decision to have practice on Christmas Eve, this is not a regular day. Like, players and their families had things they were going to do planned already prior to this day already. Like, this is not something that, that day they were saying, well, hey, you know what? We're going to book flights today. This is something that was already pre-planned, probably weeks or months ago. So, and Jason Kidd was a former NBA player. We know himself, athlete as well, so he knows. So to me, that's a tough thing to deal with. That, like I said, I totally disagree with that part. Now maybe me being a coach at some point, I kind of could see a little bit of an understanding what Jason Kidd is trying to implement, but at this moment I don't, because we're talking about an important day to a lot of family members, family plans, that can cause a lot of issues that is not needed or not wanted. So, for me, that kind of raises eyebrows, and it kind of gets you to think, well, what the hell is going to happen in Dallas? And Dallas is going to be even worse. Hell, he is known a lot more in Dallas than he was in Milwaukee. So, it's going to be kind of interesting, but I think that was kind of foul how he went about it. But again, I'm trying to be kind of open and kind of see on a coaching aspect, but at this point, I think that was the wrong way to approach it.
Yeah, I think, everybody loves Christmas. I think everybody would love to be off around that time. I know some jobs don't happen like that. But I think, if these guys have plans and stuff like that, tickets bought for, and we all know the stress of traveling through Christmas, airports, stuff like that, depending where you live. And you talking about that Milwaukee area, and then, I don't know, you got to fly out, O'Hare Airport in Chicago and stuff like that. In Chicago, that's a hassle. That's a big hassle. You have practice. If you had to have practice in the morning, trying to change tickets and stuff like that, that's a big hassle. So that's my thing I hate about that. But let me read a little bit more on this. So they get to practice next morning. It was ugly. Kid went at Larry Sanders. If y'all know about Larry Sanders, he was center for the NBA for a few years, but kind of stepped away for mental issues. and stuff like that. Talented center, but we have to leave very early. Kid went on to call him a piece of crap. I'll just paraphrase that. A terrible player. The team ran like a college team would. I don't think I've done that since I left J. Kidd, Knight says. It was not normal. And then we'll get to the Larry Sanders part here. Practice lasted 3 hours, and then Kidd made players lift weights and do pool exercises. Half the team didn't know how to swim, but Kidd made everybody run in the pool. Everybody was so tired that nobody was thinking about Christmas, Pachulia said. We didn't have enough energy to left open gifts. Kidd continued to berate Sanders, though, calling him pathetic. Sanders couldn't handle it. Where he was in life, his career, his practice, all his mistakes and frustrations, his entire body turned to jelly as he cramped from head to toe. Sanders said, I had a full body convulsion. My body broke down physically and I couldn't take it, and mentally. Sanders said, asked to be excused to the bathroom. And Kidd said, oh, don't worry. As Sanders walked away, we'll wait and then we'll run some more. Sanders left the facility and took himself to the hospital, spending the night there. Few knew what happened in the aftermath, and he didn't have the energy to talk to talk about it. What do you think about that part there? Because we know, like I said, we mentioned about Larry Sanders' mental health and stuff like that, and then him having an excuse to go to the hospital for his own mental. What do you think about that part there?
Well, at some point, like I said, you want again, he's leading men, Jason Kidd is. So for him to go about it in that aspect leads me to believe that that's how he was coached. You're talking about somebody who seems like he's trying to prove that he is the authority. He's the coach. He's the one that makes the final decisions. Quick story, I remember when I was at Florida State senior year, doing a workout in the fall, and my coach, who I was real cool, just had a great junior year. I'm getting hurt at practice. While I'm feeling pretty injured, I stopped during a workout. He says, I didn't tell you to stop. Or I didn't tell you to go get this workout. So basically letting me know, even though this guy's my coach, he's still letting me know, hey, I'm cool with him. Letting not only me, but letting others know, like, I'm the one that make the final decisions for most things. So, again, it's a way that you go about it. And it seems as if, at this point, now obviously the difference between that is you're talking about a college kid and you're talking about a man who's making millions of dollars. So that could play a huge part of that as well. So I feel like, Jason Kidd, and it's kind of similar to, making them practice Christmas Eve. Having that decision prior to is the fact that he's trying to prove that he is the boss. A lot of athletes who were coached at one point get that go ahead to be a coach or want to be a coach. It's kind of like they're trying to separate themselves from being the athlete to being the coach now. And that's what it seems like, because, one thing we talk about hiring coaches is we would love for some of these coaches, former coaches, to get a job. Why? Because they can relate to the players. Now, that sounds great. But the only bad thing that goes with relating with players is the fact that now these players feel like you're on the same level as them. So maybe that played a part. But again, it that would have rubbed me the wrong way as an athlete. I definitely would have had an issue with that. And it seems like, man, like Jason Kidd is trying to prove that he's the boss. And, saying some of the things that he's saying, like, oh yeah, well, even when he come back, don't worry, we're gonna finish running. Like, yes, understanding you have to be tough on some of these guys. We know that. But how tough? Like, how does it work? Movie that kind of just popped up in my head that was kind of similar if you think about it was Coach Carter.
Yeah.
But every time I try to make a comparison, it's hard to compare high school kids to grown men, So that's where the difference is. We see the greatness in Bill Belichick with the Patriots, and we hear Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, these guys that lead Guam, saying that there's a Patriot way. So, some of these coaches have different ways, and this would be looked at different if Milwaukee was winning or if Jason Kidd had a winning record behind his coaching. But we don't see that. So for me, I find it kind of like bossy, trying to show that he's the head guy. But it may work for some guys, it may not. But that's the part that kind of can hurt the coach, Jason Kidd's resume. Like, do I see that working for Luka? No, I don't see that. So I'm not sure how that coaching way works. Coaching the top tier athletes like a Luka. So I think that changes, but that alone, that definitely doesn't sound too encouraging to an athlete.
Yeah, I'll finish this up here. Larry up and leaving to go to the hospital, and him not coming back should be a telltale sign. You brought up Luka and the Dallas thing. Kid's very lucky that he's get this chance to coach this generational top player. In a sense that's similar to him, but can very shoot better than him. And he's getting a very lucky chance, after that run in Milwaukee to coach this player. We'll see how it works out. But, stuff like this, will probably put us off to your coaching career. I know we got a lot of time to talk about it, but, Syracuse women's basketball, they had this type of issue going on with their coach. We see what happened with Greg Marshall in Wichita State. But, for Kidd, we'll see how things play out in Dallas. Like I said, he's got that lucky break to get this top player to coach for his, for this third go around as a head coach. But we'll see how things play out in the long run for Kidd and company. But D-Lock, how can people find you on social media?
You guys can definitely find me at Black-813. Look up Dentarius Lock on YouTube in the future. We're getting back doing YouTube channels or YouTube videos. NFL is back, so I will be working on that as well. Let them know they can find you at and the Crooks Process.
You can find me on Twitter at Spawn4288. That is Spawn4288. Also, like Dentarius mentioned, I do another podcast on the side called The Crooks Process. Please do follow me on Facebook and Instagram. That is Facebook and Instagram, The Crooks Process. I recently dropped 2 episodes here lately, talking about Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC, and some other wrestling news. So please do check that out as well. Also, please do follow us on Twitter on Fastbreak IESR. That is Fastbreak IESR. Also, little news we got to drop. Me and Dentarius are going on a little hiatus here for the next few weeks. But we will be back on December 12th. And on that date, we'll be talking some WNBA and doing our season preview series with the divisions. So, be on the lookout for that. September 12th, that's when we return. So, we're kind of like in that dead period in basketball right now. That, some league, finishing up. Draft is passed. Free agency's kind of passed. We're kind of in that dead period in basketball. So we kind of been at this for a year and a half, nonstop.
Oh yeah, talk about a lot too.
You know, we transitioned from the Lock and Crooks to this show, and lucky for us, you know, basketball started to come back at the perfect time, and we just kind of been at it ever since then. So, like I said, we'll be back. And Terry, yeah, we'll be back September 12th. We'll be back on the airways. If any big news happens and stuff like that, or some crazy trade happens, we'll be back on the air. But, you know, till then, you know, we'll see y'all on September 12th. The day after.
We'll be back.
Day after September 11th. But till then, ladies and gentlemen, check out iesportsradio.com. Mike Pat is right behind us, and we talk to y'all later. Peace.